So let me introduce Dr. Stella Bvuma, Director, University of Johannesburg. Our topic is navigating the digital economy, the critical role of reskilling and upskilling in shaping the workforce. Dr. Stella, please. The floor is open.
Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm not going to do death by PowerPoint. So I'm an academic by profession, so I do a lot of presentation on a day-to-day basis. But I just want to have a conversation with yourselves. And this is also given the 15 minutes time limit that I have. I hope I'll be able to utilize it effectively. So I thought, before I start, it is really an honor to address you today on the very profound subject, importance on the future of South Africa, the digital economy, and the pivotal role of reskilling and upskilling and shaping our workforce. We can all agree that when we move into the digital economy or the digital age, if you do not have the right set of skills, it has been said by quite few speakers, you are going to have a challenge. I think maybe let me start by just providing an understanding of the digital economy, that it encompasses all economic activities relying on digital technologies. So being a PhD, IT graduate myself, and also being in the space of information technology, we know that now the technologies are tapping even into our private homes, even into our personal lives, that we are now using the technology. However, within this digital economy, it also offers unparalleled opportunities for innovation, economic growth, job creation, and so forth. As we embrace this new era, it is imperative to equip our workforce with the necessary skills to thrive. And I'm putting necessary in bold and underlined because it's a different thing to have the skill, and then it's another thing to have the necessary skill that responds to this digital economy that we're talking about. Now, perhaps you'll ask, what would be the importance of reskilling and upskilling? I think it's also because of the sector where I am, you need to adapt to technological advancement. So as you're using certain technologies today, you'll realize that there is a rapid technological advance that is necessitating continuous learning. And therefore, if you're an employee or your workers are not proficient with the new tools or platforms, it may be challenging for them to ensure that they remain relevant in their field. And the implications of that, it's quite complex. And that is why it's important that we look at reskilling and upskilling and looking at the necessary skills, because sometimes we call it, we take employees or workers to reskilling or to specific courses. But the challenge is that responding to the market need or to this digital economy that we're speaking about. I think the next important thing for reskilling and upskilling is that it also enhances employability. So reskilling and upskilling improves an individual's ability to create career advancement and opportunities. It responds to quite a lot of things within the human capital or the human resource division, where you are able to retain talent in your organization, because you might also be looking at the digital literacy skill. You also look at the data analysis skills. And the most crucial one, as we are moving into the digital economy, is the cybersecurity and the increasing demand that we are gaining into the digital economy. Of course, you can't talk about digital economy without how does it contribute to economic growth. A skilled workforce will drive innovation and productivity, which then is a critical thing for any economy for it to grow. I think one thing that one has learned is that when organizations or institutions or companies adopt digital technologies, they will then require skilled personnel to remain, competitive and also to maintain their competitiveness. So it's very important that we look at that. But what is critical as well in the South African context is it's the ability to reduce unemployment. Statistics are telling us that our unemployment rate is increasing. We have challenges with youth unemployed and graduate unemployment. And this also speaks to what exactly is happening. And I guess reducing unemployment will contribute to providing the diverse skill set that will help us to address most of the mismatches that we're having between the skilled workers and possessing and those that are required by employers. So if you look at the universities, for example, are we producing qualifications that responds to the market? Or do we produce a graduate and then they go to the industry and the industry is still stuck with this person who does not have the right skill set? Of course, the bureaucracies within the system itself creates challenges in higher education, because if you think about an information technology qualification, a degree that we offer, if you're going to offer a new qualification, you have to go through committees where it needs to be approved. And by the time it's approved, as you know, technology has no mercy. It's almost like it's an outdated kind of content that allows you to amend it. So institutions like UoJ, which I appreciate, is that they also offer that flexibility to amend your curriculum and make sure that you're able to cover the skills gap that we are having. Maybe let me start with the challenges of South Africa. Maybe people know these challenges and maybe others in part of the country are experiencing them. You see, I'm in the city of Johannesburg, which is the largest city in South Africa, but I grew up in the townships or the so-called rural area, which is mostly the marginalized or people who don't have access to technology or access to the right devices. And again, that speaks to South Africa's digital divide. And that is influenced, deeply by its historical background. Now, some of the factors that contributes to the divide is the apartheid era that you know about, where we experienced racial segregation. Under apartheid, policies were systematically disadvantages non-white population, their access to quality education, economic opportunities, and even technological advancement. Again, it also contributes to educational disparities. If you look at what we had, the Bantu Education Act of 1953, that act formalized racially segregated education, which ensures that Black South Africans received an inferior education, which had a long-lasting effect on skilling developed and technological literacy amongst the previously disadvantaged communities. Of course, the economic policies, it meant that non-white South Africans were forced into homelands of Bantunans or Bantustans, underdeveloped and also under-resourced regions that lacked basic infrastructure, including telecommunication and internet access. Post-apartheid transition, you'll ask, 1994, after we became a democratic country, what happened today? So, of course, there have been rebuilding efforts where the post-apartheid government focused on redressing past inequalities. But the legacy of apartheid still left a deep socioeconomic divide that continued to impact access to technology and also access to the internet. Economic disparities, again, there's economic inequalities, which remains still huge, where it influences access to digital resources. Wealthier urban areas have seen more rapid technological advancement compared to the poorer rural areas. If I go back to the village in another province, which is about 600 kilometers from the city of Joburg where I am, it means that I have to think about, am I going to be able to connect to the internet? As you know, my work is online. It's difficult because you don't have connectivity. So therefore, the whole thing kind of affects your lifestyle, kind of affects your economic, it makes it very clear that you are living in economic disparities, which we need to look at. The other thing post-apartheid is the infrastructure development. You've got urban versus the rural divide. Post-apartheid, significant progress has been made in urban areas where infrastructure development is faster. Where I stay, I call myself privileged in inverted commas because I can easily connect to the internet. I've got 2 boys who I still drive with them to the village to visit the grandparents and the family. And when they get there, you can see the disparities, you can see the infrastructure frustrations, because there are schools there where when we were affected by COVID, some of them could not access online education because of the infrastructure issues that we're having. So we also have economic barriers that I think contribute to us not fully participating to high data cost, fully participating into the digital economy, and the high data cost is an issue. We are having a high highest data cost, in South Africa or in the region, making internet access a luxury for many, particularly impacting previously disadvantaged groups. Well, I must also appreciate our government. There has been quite intense efforts in terms of the policy initiatives that they've put in place, the National Development Plan that is available. There's also been education reforms where it looks at efforts underway to improve the education quality and digital literacy. But the remnants of the past inequalities presents ongoing challenges. So it's not something that we're going to eradicate faster. Just with that background, it's just to give you the historical context of apartheid, economic policies, and the entrenched socioeconomic inequalities that have created a significant digital divide in South Africa. Of course, I appreciate the progress that has been made. The effects of historical injustice continue to pose challenges to equality or equitable digital access, which still affects most of the people that I grew up with or most of the society which I belong to. And I think it's something that we need to look at. So in summary, I think the key things that we need to look at is to say, what do we do then? What are the things that we need to do in order to make sure that we are ready for the digital economy? We have a society that is ready to participate, is to obviously address the educational disparities, to look at the digital divide, the economic barriers. How do we address the issue of high cost of training programs and upskilling initiatives that can, prohibit for both individuals, and particularly one of my favorite sectors that I always advocate for is the small business sector, because they are regarded as the backbone of the economy. The other important thing in addressing the economic barriers, I think it's the public-private partnership and government subsidies that can alleviate some of these financial burdens that we see. Yes, we have a challenge that even within the workforce itself, there's often resistance to adopting the new technologies and learning the new skills, because people are often comfortable with ways of how they do business, their workflows that they've been practicing over the last 20 years. If you come in now, you say this technology is going to enable you, and therefore it takes away some of the task. It creates some kind of a psychological environment where one has to adapt into, which is necessary for us to also look at culture that values lifelong learning, and adaptability is also very crucial. I mean, the previous speaker was talking about the lifelong learning, and I think it's very important that how do we introduce this lifelong learning? But at the same time, as universities, we need to look at the skills mismatch, because I think that's a disaster that we still have institutions that are graduating students that are not employed. Because if the current curriculum in various educational institutions does not align with industry needs, then we are facing a crisis of participating in the digital economy. But what are the strategies for success? In closing, I think what is important is we need to have a government that should implement policies that support digital literacy from an early age. Encourage investments in the digital infrastructure, and specifically the training, programs that we provide. They should be able to respond to the success of participating in the digital economy. The private sector involvement, I think it's important that private sectors should invest in ongoing training programs for their employees, but also have certain programs that speak to the unemployed graduates that are entering the market to say, yes, you have this degree, but what is the tailor-made program that we can, set aside for those individuals? The key thing is collaboration with educational institutions, which I'm happy at the University of Johannesburg, we are actually collaborating with various educational institutions where we try to develop a relevant curricula that can assure that we graduate, graduates that possess the skills that are required by the market. In conclusion, perhaps, and I'm really closing, is that the digital economy presents a transformative opportunity for South Africa. And I can assure you that maybe for other various parts of the continent, where we are able to prioritize reskilling and upskilling, and we can actually create a workforce that is ready to take advantage of the new frontier. I guess the road ahead is challenging, But if we are going to address these challenges head on, we can assure that we will have a prosperous, inclusive future, which include communities centered on affordable or free courses of digital skills, where it's also allowing them to have access to wider programs that speaks to what the market requires. So thank you very much for the invitation and for listening to my talk. And I hope that speaking to the heart, you were able to capture my presentation as I presented it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Stella. I can feel it because maybe I'm very closer to you. I'm in Santon right now, so you're at UoJ. I can feel that vibe, and I can feel that passion you have, and the way you articulated the entire. I mean, I know because I'm aware of the system. I've been part of the system for many years, but you articulated it so well. So thank you very much, Dr. Stella. I think one of the challenges we have as a country is how one, of course, is the people who are already in the system, students who are already in universities, doing some trades, doing some occupations. That's fine. The bigger challenge is the access. Our schooling system, grade 10, 11, and 12. I think that's where my expertise lie. I work in a school space, which is grade 11 and 12. We need to have what you call interventions, which are needed at matric level, so that when we have students coming in, I mean, I visit some of the schools in Soweto. You're very familiar with that area. There are some schools where we don't even have a student who has graduated in a BD pass. BD is a bachelor degree pass. So we need to have interventions on those sides. At the same level, the universities need to be a little bit more proactive, and in terms of open to the private sector. So I think that integration between the private sector and universities, I think it's happening in a big way. We've been part of many university programs throughout the country. But thank you very much. I think the session was absolutely amazing, and I'm sure everybody really thoroughly enjoyed, and now can actually feel your dreams are happening. Thank you. Thank you.